totally.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. My name is Jenny, and I'm on the events team here at Books Are Magic. Before we get started, I wanted to point out some logistics for how tonight's going to go. We'll be doing an audience hand-raised Q&A right after the reading, so just start thinking of questions to ask now. After the talk tonight, John and Peter will be signing just right by the front register there as well. We just ask that you have your belongings with you so we can break down the chairs and everything and make sure there's enough space for everyone. And if you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of J is for Judy online using the link in the live stream description. Okay, it's my privilege to introduce John Robert Allman, Peter Emmerich, and Alexis Michelle, who are here to discuss John's sixth book, J is for Judy, described as a perfect for an adult old movie buff to share with a younger friend from Kirkus. J is for Judy is a star-studded alphabet book featuring the great ladies of the classic era of American movies, brought to you by the creators of A is for Audra and B is for Broadway. John is a local author who works in television marketing. He is the author of the aforementioned A is for Audra, B is for Broadway, and also 3 picture books with the American Ballet Theater, including Boys Dance, B is for Ballet, and The Night Before the Nutcracker, most of which are available for purchase up at the front. And Peter is the acclaimed illustrator of A is for Audra, B is for Broadway, and J is for Judy. This is his third collaboration with John. He's also worked with DreamWorks and the Walt Disney Company, for which he illustrated the U.S. Postal Service's Art of Disney stamp series. Alexis Michelle is a drag performer from New York City. She was one of the 14 queens who competed on the 9th season of RuPaul's Drag Race and the 8th season of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars. So, without further delay, everyone please give a very warm welcome to John, Peter, and Alexis.
Shall we?
Okay, this is J is for Judy, classic Hollywood's leading ladies from A to Z, written by John Robert Allman, illustrated by Peter Emmerich. So, A is for Audrey, a sudden sensation when she played a princess in Rome on vacation.
B is for Betty and Barbara, who blazed in radiant roles that amused and amazed.
C's for Joan Crawford, who like Mildred Pierce was driven and dauntless and feisty and fierce. It's also for Carmen, that brilliant Brazilian, and Carol and Claudette, who were 1 in a million.
D is for Debbie and Donna and Doris, the dynamite Dorothy and dazzling Dolores.
E is for Elizabeth, always alluring, and Ethel, whose talent and tunes were enduring. Are we doing Esther as well? Yeah, okay. Well, let's look at the first one. And E is also for Esther. Esther made movies uniquely aquatic, swimmer turned star, whose routines were hypnotic.
F's Joan Fontaine and her friends who were frightened in films that were hair-raising, haunting, and heightened.
G is for Ginger, who floated with flair in the arms of the agile, athletic Astaire. Gloria Swanson gave gumption and grit to a desperate diva who hoped for a hit.
H is for Hattie, whose Hollywood highs included taking home the Academy's prize.
Ingrid, an icon whose skill was immense, made Elsa intriguing, ideal, and intense. I'm going to steal this one, gents, if I may. J's Julie and Judy, who couldn't do wrong in the Alps or in Oz when they burst into song.
K's Katharine Hepburn, who brimmed with bravado, and also the breathtaking Katie Gerardo.
L is for Lena, and Lupe and Lauren were stars in musicals, comedies, and film noirs.
M's for Marlene and Marilyn too, as two savvy singers who sparkled on cue.
N is for Natalie, Norma, and Nancy in flicks that were daring, dramatic, and dancy.
O's for Olivia, Joan Fontaine's sister. As shy Catherine Sloper, it's hard to resist her.
P's Princess Grace, who made pictures perfection with co-stars like Carrie and Hitchcock's direction.
Q's Queen Christina, presented with passion in Garbo's flamboyant, formidable fashion.
R is for Rosalind, Ruby, and Rita, who triumphed as Hildy, Ruth, and Anita.
S is Sophia, whose famed hands and feet are imprinted forever in Grauman's concrete.
T's Shirley Temple, the mini but mighty, whose curls and charisma made magic in Heidi.
The moving Miyoshi Umeki is you. The Oscars rewarded her stateside debut.
V is the versatile Vivian Lee, whose breakable Blanche was as brave as could be.
W's wonderful Anna May Wong, in trailblazing turns, she was stunning and strong.
Behind every actress who shines on the screen is a critical crew of creatives unseen. These experts who edit, craft costumes, or write made exceptional films that enthrall and excite.
Y's for Miss Young, who was graceful and great in a holiday hit when she learned how to skate.
Z is the glamorous Zsa Zsa Gabor. With spangles and spouses, she knew more was more.
These ladies are legends, so we recommend, once you finish this book, see their movies.
The end. Well, I just have to say, I'm so excited to be here. It's amazing that this is the third in this series, and each one more beautiful than the one before it, although they're all equally amazing, of course. So let's open it right up, because we want this to be about all of you. Does anybody have anything they want to jump in with? Anything they're dying to know? I'll start. So I am curious, because of course, as a possible homosexual myself, the sort of need, desire, want to start the way you started in this series made perfect sense to me. What was the progression like? Sort of what led you from starting with A is for Audra that got you to J is for Judy? How did that develop?
We actually kind of always had this one in mind from the very beginning, as well as a possible sequel. And I actually wrote the first draft of it in 2019, right after A is for Audra came out. And then when we saw kind of how that did, and that there was this, market of people that were excited for a children's book about Broadway divas and theater in general that hadn't really been served before, we thought following that up with B is for Broadway and kind of broadening the scope of what that was all about in a different way would have made sense as the next book. So we put this on the shelf for a little while and then got to pull it back out, and here we are. Although at the time it was called A is for Audrey, Hepburn, but then we thought that was a mouthful, a little confusing with A is for Audra, so we renamed it J is for Judy, which is perfect.
And it's also her centenary
Yeah.
when we were doing it, so it sort of made sense too.
Very timely.
Yeah.
Also, let's hear it for the gingham, everybody.
Which wasn't planned. We did not plan any of this.
Yeah.
How do you start? Do you start with the list of names, or do you start with the caption?
Yeah, it's kind of a puzzle. So usually I just write out the alphabet and then sort of figure out who we have to include, like who people would be really mad if they weren't in there, and fit them in kind of where they can go, sort of like Sudoku, to make sure there's a spot for everyone and that nobody's left out. And then you see where the holes are and figure out how to solve those and kind of move stuff around again. And then it kind of just like locks in after a while. And then once you've actually kind of figured that out, changing one is really hard. So it's like that first step that's the most important, because once you kind of, if you move one person, you probably have to move someone else, and it kind of all falls apart, especially after it all rhymes. So yeah, we just start kind of sweating it out and then go from there.
Did you have like a year that you were like, this is how we're going to define the end of classic Hollywood, or you sort of like figured you'd go as late as you needed to fill the puzzle?
A great technical question. So I went by AFI rules, which basically means the person had to have made a significant impact on film before 1960.
So then how do you choose which role you're going to illustrate as part of this collection?
That was also really fun. So one thing that we thought could be exciting with this book that we didn't get to do as much with A is for Audrey or B is for Broadway, because theater kind of comes and goes, and you can know the shows, you can know the albums, but you can't like go watch it necessarily. But with movies, if you are excited about seeing Katharine Hepburn next to a cheetah or a leopard and you want to show it to your kid, you can go get the movie. So we made a point to try and find the most family-friendly, iconic roles that each of the women had played, so that if someone wanted to kind of use it as a guide to introduce their family to classic film, that they weren't going to run into any super problematic movies.
Well, I think someone even commented today on the post that we had about tonight's event, was that they liked it, but they were disappointed because they wanted to see Judy as something other than Dorothy. Yeah.
I mean,
And I agree, but that they wanted, a different film. But it's a children's book. I mean, you have to be conscious of what you're designing for. So it obviously would make sense to not do her, in
Nuremberg.
Yes, exactly.
It's also one of the greatest movies ever made.
So then how did you know that Ingrid's suit was brown?
Oh.
Great question.
Finding the reference for this was actually harder in some cases than in the Broadway books, because for some reason there was a lot of color reference for Broadway, yet I was guessing on a lot of things. So like even with Audrey Hepburn, there's a big debate as to whether her skirt was blue in that scene or whether the skirt was tan. And it goes back and forth, and there are people who say that they have the skirt and they lie. And, so it was really, but what's amazing is when I would start going down this hole of this rabbit hole of reference, there's somebody who actually makes the exact brooch that Joan Crawford wears in Mildred Pierce, and you can order it. And I didn't, but I thought about it, and but it just so you can get find a lot of great reference, if you're willing to look for it, but you really have to dig deep.
Peter's like a forensic Hollywood costume excavator, literally crawling the dark web at all hours and sending through references for things he found that have like gone through auction 45 years ago, where there's like one dusty scan of the catalog with the exact brooch that someone wore so that it could be right in here, which was really exciting.
Yeah. I found a girl who recreated the Donna Reed dress from It's a Wonderful Life, and that was the only way I could find the color reference, because she found a small piece of the fabric and she was able to recreate it from that. And so that's how I was able to, so because the reference in the film is murky, and you know, so you got to find things like that. But someone recreated also the star sapphire brooch that Carol Lombard wears in the movie, and it's, you know, that it's on display now at the Hollywood Museum in Los Angeles. So you can find it. It's just you got to look. So which is why they
got to look really hard.
Yeah, they give me a lot of time.
I mean, I don't want to belabor the point.
No, please.
Can you talk about how you discovered, I think it was in the first book, the color of Julie Andrews' dress, was it? That took you to the library?
Oh, it was the Leslie Uggams dress in Hallelujah Baby. I could not find the color reference for that dress. I had no idea what it was. I even tweeted Leslie Uggams, and she did not answer me. I was very upset, and so I went to the library at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, and when you go there, they will not allow you to touch certain things. Like, you literally cannot touch the photographs, or you cannot touch the slides. So you have to wear gloves. But then I would find something, but I wasn't allowed to actually photograph it. So, like, I wasn't allowed to scan it or anything like that. So I would have to hold a sheet of slides up, and then with my cell phone try to get a brief. And I found one picture of it. I found one color reference for it, and that was the only way I was able to do it.
And what were these slides up?
It was just of any of the Broadway shows that were, you know, that we needed. They were mostly Martha Swope photos, because she was the photographer who was working doing that, you know, primarily, and you know, went through this whole rigmarole of trying to find all this reference, and then someone said to me, well, did you ever look at the Tom Tierney, the paper doll books that they did of all the Broadway shows? A friend of mine who was a costume designer, and I ordered them, and I was like, well, there's everything I needed. And now I'm done with the book.
But the Leslie Uggams dress
that was the only photo that I
purple,
found.
right?
No, it was yellow.
yellow?
It was yellow. Yeah, it was the
I
only way
suppose there's some challenge too with photography. You know, once you move past, I mean, obviously there's a challenge in black and white photography, but even once you entered into colorizing photographs, that's probably a challenge, because things were often not accurate.
Nothing matched. But I did take the approach at certain points where I thought, well, if I can't find this damn thing, nobody's going to find it, so nobody's going to write a letter. Right.
You are the authority.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, in the back.
Peter, did you ever run into issues with some of the designs being trademarked or copyrighted or anything? Is that a thing?
We have that issue a lot when it comes to certain. We were very controlled in terms of how much we used of a person's likeness, and you know, certain. We've got it down to a science to sort of know how far we can go without getting into any sort of copyright issue. I don't know what the percentage is you can use of someone's face, but like we were always taught in school, like if it's 30% skewed of someone's likeness, then you can get away with it without having to worry about a copyright issue. But nothing in here is based on they're based on the photos, but they're not copies of the photos. I cannot copy a photo, because that's somebody else's intellectual property. So I cannot take a shot from the film and then just do that. I have to change it somehow.
But you can recreate the costumes, the dresses.
Yeah, because it's homage.
Yeah.
So
I actually think that's part of what's so vibrant about your work in these books is that you are not just capturing what we've seen as a still photograph. You're sort of capturing people in motion, which is really much more active and alive.
It's making it my version of what it is. It's not just ripping something.
Yeah,
as it was.
I have another. Now, I personally have an NDA that I only adhere to so much, but I'm curious, and you can kick me out if this is the wrong thing to ask, but are there plans for the next in the series? Not that you have to drop what it is, but
John?
We're kicking around some ideas.
Good.
TBD. Yeah. I plead the fifth.
I know nothing.
we need to do a Drag Race book. You're like,
Imagine the copyright issues there.
Yeah, don't bother. Yes.
How did you two start working together on A's for Father? How did you meet, and then how did you three meet?
Great question. So Peter and I were like match made by Random House Kids. We didn't know each other at all. I, submitted the manuscript to my amazing editor, Francis, who's hiding out in the back, whose art director had Peter in, their like Rolodex of illustrators for years, and we're kind of waiting for the right thing to work on with him. And this just felt perfect. We looked at a couple of others and we were all like, it's got to be this guy. He's perfect. You'd already done some of the Ladies and A's for Rogers on your own for your portfolio as kind of like passion projects. And so they went out to you, and it was the fastest anyone had ever said yes to an offer.
Yeah, I was told that it was like two different people went into the meeting and said this guy, and and it was me. So that's what I was told. I don't know how true that was, but
we looked at it at Sardi's.
Is that true?
It was
Is
very.
that true? Is that?
It was me and Michael.
Yeah.
Most of the time we were just like, it's obviously Peter.
So yeah, and Michael had tried, like we'd talked like a year and a half before about something else, and I had given him like a quick proposal for something, and never heard anything, and then you just and that's this business. You do stuff and you forget about it. You don't think that you don't think any more about it, and then he called me out of the blue, and I didn't like think about it. I didn't call my husband. I didn't say anything. I just said, yeah, okay, let's do it. I mean, that was it. It was in that first conversation. It was over. So.
And then it was a while before we actually met, but we got to have lunch together and look at the first run of sketches for A's for Audra and kind of talk about stuff. And then we basically became like the world's best gay pen pals. All throughout, like, however long it's been now, 5 years of working together on these, like, texting furiously back and forth as you're working, basically to kind of figure out, okay, well, if we're going to have Anne ranking in this outfit from that, then we got to do this one for this one, and it has to be from the revival, not the whatever, and it has to be the second act outfit, not the first act outfit.
And there are times where I'll say I don't want to, because not only do I'll get the manuscript, but I also get Francis and John have already discussed what films or what shows things are the women are going to be coming from, so I sort of get a playlist of what I have to replicate, but I'm also not afraid to turn around and say I really don't want to do this because I really know that this will make a more exciting illustration. And I don't really get much resistance because I think we're all thinking along the same lines. It's all about what works best for the book itself. And the one thing that I think has always been great is that because I'd like to think I'm the right person for the job. You've never had to explain to me who any of these people are. So, it was just like, oh yeah, no, we're good.
And you really love them, and I think like that makes the work better, and you can tell looking at it that they're people and movies and shows and whatever that you have affection for. And
It's
that,
important.
Like, it makes them sing in a way that someone just looking at a picture and doing it who didn't have that couldn't do.
Yeah, it's important, and I say this. About this one specifically. I said it about the first one, but this is the book I wish I had. This is the book that as a little fat gay kid in Brooklyn would have been everything.
Yeah.
Because my parents were wonderful, amazing people, and they bought me, Screen Star books and silent film books, and so I was studying this stuff at 11, 12 years old, and reading this. We had to buy books. There was a time where this was the only thing you did, and I know I don't look it, but it was essential to me. This world was everything.
And there's a whole generation of people now who I think talk about being sort of raised by Turner Classic Movies if you happen to grow up in a household where that was on the TV a lot. And I love that in sort of a different way for a different generation. Hopefully this could become kind of a version of that as opposed to just turning on the TV and hoping for the best with whatever happens to be on that day, you could sort of go after stuff that has a little stamp of approval from the book.
I remember going to the video store and renting All About Eve for the first time, knowing nothing about it, just pulling it off the shelf and saying, I have to watch this.
A really iconic Allman family story is that one time we were on a road trip and we had a little TV in our car to watch movies on when we were stuck in the back for hours and hours, and we had The Sound of Music on not one but 2 VHS tapes, and one of them melted in the car somehow, the first one. And so for a while, the Sound of Music to us was just Act 2. No songs, way more Nazis. But then we got a new one, but yeah, that was a hardship.
Yes.
Just thinking about this theme, could each of you identify a movie from the book that you would most want to recommend to a little one who has not seen anything?
That's good.
Recommend to a little one?
Yeah,
To a child?
A picture book age kid. Which movie from this book would you say started this? And just to interrupt, this will be our last question, so we have time for the signing line.
Mine is Bringing Up Baby, which I actually kind of had underestimated until I went looking for family-friendly classics, but it's so delightful. There's so much to love about it if you're an adult, but if you're a kid, it's so zany. It's kind of like watching Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant as Tom and Jerry just kind of goofing around for 90 minutes with a leopard and a dog, and it's just a blast, and I would highly recommend anyone watch that with their kid.
Streetcar Named Desire. No, yeah. I mean, how can you not? I mean, you want magic? No, The Wizard of Oz is everything.
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz is I mean, it's the ultimate friend movie. It's the ultimate quest movie. It's you want to learn about a villain. That's the villain. When I teach illustration and we teach about characters, and I teach how to design a villain, I always use the Wicked Witch of the West as an example, because we're so we're numb to it now, but she's scary. She's pretty scary, and so that movie has everything that you could need, and it's so pretty. It's just a pretty looking piece of work. So yeah, that's it.
Ditto. I think it captures so much wonderment, imagination. I think there's a lot of parallels too for queer people in that film. With
and there are queer characters in it.
Yes.
And the performances are amazing.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah. It's kind of your one-stop shop for a young person.
It's worth the hype.
Yeah, agreed.
It's absolutely worth the hype.
Yeah. Well, I know you're all going to join our incredible creators of these beautiful books, and of course, J is for Judy, up at the front.
And just some housekeeping from me. If you don't mind lining up in this middle of the aisle, I'll move the tripod so you have some more space. And then my coworker Mads will be coming through for stickies, for names for personalization. And the board book for A is for Audra is coming out tomorrow, and we have copies up front to purchase as well as some pins. So make sure you don't miss those as well. Thank you.